Welcome to Faith and Conversations about life, belief, and everything. I'm Chaplain Eric Doolittle. I get to sit down with leaders in our community to explore the intersection of faith and beliefs with the world, with big ideas, and with what they do. So this week we are joined by Eric Shuman, and we are going to talk about faith and community engagement. Eric is our Experiential Learning Coordinator at North Central. He advances our strategic initiatives around career readiness, community-engaged learning, and he works with undergraduate research. Eric is a point of contact for external community members who want to be able to work with our students to find internships, to be able to find ways to engage in their community, and to find placements in learning. We're really happy to have him with us, and would you welcome him to Coden Chapel? So Eric, let's start right at the basic level. What is community engaged learning?
So community engaged learning is both a pedagogy, a sort of teaching style, and it's also a subset of experiential learning, which is, as a North Central College requirement, it's a set of classes that have you go out into the community, but it's also as a learning or teaching style, it's a way to reflect and extend your sort of rote learning in a book to the broader world beyond the classroom. It's a discipline that's been put together increasingly with increasing emphasis since the 1990s, and it's something that it's still evolving in many ways, so we're sort of finding out.
So that's been closely tied here at North Central with career readiness. Mm-hmm. And so how do those two things work together in general, and how do they play out here on campus?
So there's research that links the two outcomes. Community engaged learning has you go out into the community, has you apply your knowledge. Career readiness is really about the same things, taking your knowledge and being ready at the, as soon as you have your diploma in hand, to go forth into this great big world and start to figure out what you want to do there. And hopefully you've got some ideas, knowing that your major is not going to be tied directly to the job that you're necessarily going to be doing. Career readiness is meant to sort of give you the flexibility and the power to talk about the kinds of things that you're interested in, the things that you want to do. And community engaged learning, as a sort of precursor or a parallel track to that, is a way to take on projects that can help people in sort of live situations that take advantage of the strengths that you have as an individual, the kinds of knowledge that you've developed both in your personal life and in the classroom, and sort of integrate everything that you know and everything that you are into a sort of whole person who's ready to go out and take on big problems.
And I think that you're bleeding into kind of what classically, and one of the things we talk about on campus, which is vocation and calling. It can be hard for folks to understand how those different words kind of relate to each other. Career readiness, job, employment, vocation, calling. So how does what you do kind of help people figure those things out, and why is that important?
So there's a lot in here that I think it becomes, it's just a great question, right? There's so many different ways that you could go with this. I think the main thing is that we can look back sort of and see a very clear trail behind us of how we got to where we are. But when we look forward, we never really know where the twists and turns of life are going to take us. So a very important part of being ready, or trying to be ready, for the world that's out there is being flexible and having not just the sort of technical skills of being able to operate a piece of equipment or apply a formula or a protocol or things like that, but also to have in career readiness, they're called North Central's adopted 10 career competencies. Mm-hmm. Things like leadership, things like communication, being able to express yourself well in writing and orally, give good presentations, to be curious and creative, and to apply ethical principles to the kinds of things that you want to do. All of these career competencies, there are 10 that North Central focuses on. The research shows that community-engaged learning builds those skills. So it might be very easy to sort of look down a list of things that you should know in a classroom syllabus or a job description and say, yes, I can do that, I can develop this. But as everyone knows, the map is not the territory. And you have to be able to work with other people in a constructive way. You have to be able to adapt yourself to unfamiliar things that happen at the last moment or things that nobody ever thought of. And the community engaged learning aspect, let's maybe think of that as the ability to teach yourself, right? Is to take those written, known demands of a position, whether it's paid or unpaid or whatever you're doing, any kind of project out in the big world, to take those pieces and then be able to sort of think on your feet with those things. So community engaged learning, or also known as community-based learning, is a safe way to experience those kinds of surprises without necessarily having the stakes so high that a mistake is a bad thing. In fact, in community engaged learning, mistakes are what you are supposed to be doing. Like everybody makes mistakes, and how you react to that in whatever kind of project you're doing is a really important skill, right? To be able to recognize that something is going wrong early and then deal with it in a proper way. So that's the value, I think, of sort of trying things out, getting a sense of, yes, I can do this, and then raise the stakes a little bit more and raise the stakes a little bit more. And then by the time you are sort of on your own in your first or your fifth job, you feel comfortable that, yeah, I can do this, and even if it goes a little bit wrong, it's not the end of the world.
A lot of those skills that you lifted up there are also important skills just in life, right? They're things that give us a lot of ability to engage with the world beyond just career or job. And some of those skills can be real challenges, I think. And so as you're talking about effective communication and understanding strengths and abilities to adapt, how do you see those apply kind of outside of career? Like, where do you see ways for folks as they're looking out to say, oh, I can take this skill and apply it more broadly than just in this one place?
I think it applies everywhere, and I'm not trying to say this is the one answer for everything, but the value of this really, as my job title is experiential learning, the experience of whether it's a job or trying to teach yourself something or just trying something new, whether that's playing piano or going to a place you've never been before. The process of living your life is inherently one of going into the unknown in a lot of ways. So wherever you find your life taking you, having these kinds of moments where you can pause and take some of these skills to reflect on what you know and what you don't know, to recognize your own limitations and be able to own them, to be able to teach yourself what you don't know, or recognize what you don't know. That can be enormously valuable, not only as a development of a vocational kind of an aspect, but really checking in with yourself. Am I doing okay? Is this working for me? Not only is that a good thing to be able to do in your professional life, it's also, incomparably important in your personal life, in your spiritual life, in your emotional life, in dealing with friendships, family, religion, everything. So the experiential learning process, it has sort of 4 points. The idea is that experience itself is not a teacher. The saying, right, like experience is what you get right after you needed it. Experience is just things that happen. The experiential learning model says that after you have this sort of first experience, or really anywhere in the cycle, but if you start with an experience, you can then reflect on it. Sit with it just a little bit and think, what happened? So this could be journaling, this could be any kind of thing that works for you. Put it into art, put it into talking, right? I'm a person who likes to sort of get things out by discussing with people. And that process just allows you to tell the story of what happened. And then the next phase is to bring that together with what you already know. Did this match up with what I expected was going to happen? Does this match what the book said was going to happen? The book says that there's these 5 things, and step 4 seemed weird. What do I learn about that? And then the next phase is to say, okay, I had the experience, I sat with it, I compared it with what I thought should happen, and then the critical piece is to be able to say, I'm going to take my reflection and get ready to try again. So if at first you don't succeed, try again. That's why mistakes are so important. But not just blindly like trying the same thing over and over again, but processing it, adapting to it, and moving to the next stage. That really becomes everything you do as you move through your life.
And I really like the idea of thinking intentionally about reflecting on your experience and making time and space for that. That's a critical part of what we do within our faith and beliefs. I think when we're practicing them well, is that we don't just take time to do. We take time to reflect, to pause, to consider, to contemplate, to meditate, right?
Yes.
Those are all tools within that. But for some folks, it's going to seem out of place within their career to think of it that way. It's hard to tell an accountant to say, hey, maybe you should paint a little bit about what you just did, right? But I know there's been a lot of studies about how growth and reflection and creativity work, and that we need to give our mind time to process and space to reflect.
Yeah.
So what other tools do you think are available in that, and how do we, in a society that just continues want us to produce, it's countercultural to say you can do more by taking the time and doing less, right?
Well, it's work smarter, not harder, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of that, I think, comes down to being able to be a whole person in what your day-to-day task is, right? The way you spend your days is what your life becomes. So if you're an accountant and you find yourself just not, feeling like you're in the right space, right? You can take stock of that. Do I need to, what about this is not making me a whole person? What about this, it feels like I'm limited in some way. So wherever your career takes you, you should always be able to paint a picture, right? You should always have a chance to take your weekends, take your time off, take your take your family time to be able to process and really incorporate your life together as a whole unit. You are not just your job title, 8 to 5 every day, and then a completely different person. Or if you do, that tends to be, that feels very disaffecting, right? It feels very tense because you haven't been able to put everything together. I'm living my life this one way, but my values are over here. So checking in with yourself in a serious way, in a meditative way, in a way that only you can do for yourself, can only help you become better at what you do. They call them soft skills, but they are actually the most important skills of all. Not just to be able to communicate with other people, to give a convincing presentation, but also to be able to talk to yourself and believe in what you do and believe in the worth and the value and the efficacy that what you're doing is contributing to the kind of world that you actually want to live in, and not just slogging through day after day, right? Nobody wants to do that, and you can find yourself in that position in any career, right? Career you can grow out of it, or things can happen, and so it's really important to not burn out of that part, and that's where it's really vital.
I think that's one of the great pieces to be thinking about that for people at this, for our students who are kind of just starting that and looking at, where am I headed? Maybe not where I'm going to end up, but at least maybe they're finding a direction. And one of the beautiful things about an institution like North Central College is they have the opportunity to engage in some areas that they might not have considered, and to help kind of solidify what they do, what is their identity, what are their beliefs, what are their values, and why they're important. And I think that's one of the strengths of this kind of work, is you can get out into the world with the book learning and see what it's actually like, and what's good, bad, and other about that experience, right?
Absolutely. One of the wonderful things about going out into the community and sort of being your own whole person, especially when you're in college, just coming out of college, going into a place that needs your help, and that your presence and contribution is really valued, gives you that sense that you can do this. You can't, like, there is a place for you. There is something out there, and that experience, not just of making connections, not just of networking, but of connecting with yourself through trying different kinds of things and being able to say that I went over here and I tried this and it wasn't really for me. I didn't, or this organizational culture, it was great, but the work I was doing didn't quite click. For instance, one of the things that I learned about myself was that I really thrive on working with other people. I work really well on my own, but I just kind of need other people around me. I need to be part of a team in some ways. And going out into the community, whether it's part of a class or just on your own, or part of an organization, is a really valuable chance to try out a kind of an experience that you might not be able to get in that first job, right? There's, you got to work. It is just the law of life, but being able to go out and do something because you want to gives you a chance to reach a little bit farther, try something a little bit new without having to have somebody else sort of approve you or those kinds of things. Just go try, and that's irreplaceable life experience.
One of the things you mentioned there is being able to partner with folks and being able to work with different folks. We focused a lot so far on kind of what students can get out of this, but you've got a lot of partners that you're working with. So I know you're working with faculty members and also members of the community. You want to talk about some of the fun things that are happening with that? Or Some things you'd like to
Oh my gosh.
crow about?
So the nonprofit, just the nonprofit sector in this area is enormous. There are billions and billions of dollars of organizational assets and things like that in just the Chicagoland area. People, I think, get a little bit concerned by the word nonprofit as if they won't get paid, but this is not the case.
It's not non-salary.
It's not non-salary. But the really amazing things that you can do, there are organizations that we work with, like the Conservation Foundation, the Nature Conservancy, environmental organizations, right, from the Naperville Parks District to Friends of the Forest Preserve, things like that. So there's a whole kind of there's whole genres of things that you can get involved with. In more socially related things, we have a phenomenal relationship with the DuPage Children's Museum, exploring how families get to spend time with each other. We have partnered with the Field Museum. We've partnered with various other organizations. I mean, there's literally way too many organizations for me to list. But for example, this past week, I've had really great conversations with the Children's Defense Fund that we were able to talk to their representative about sort of exciting stuff, sort of at the younger level of the scale. And then a couple days later, I was also speaking to the DuPage Senior Citizens Council as well. So really, from the entire span of your life, to environmental causes, to artistic causes, to you name it. Basically, you name it, we have probably got something in that area.
And that's one of the things I really love about what you're doing is, in the classic model that we had with the college for a long time, the work with nonprofits, with service opportunities, with kind of reaching out into the community, we're kind of off on their own in different areas. And this is a model that takes that drive that we have and says, this is going to be something you can live out. This is something you can integrate into your career path, into your, you can make what you're passionate about your vocation, your calling, and figure out how that does work. And so for those folks who are in a career where they think, there's just this one way I'm going to do this, by engaging with you and all these great partners we have, they can see the other ways that, there's a whole different field that I can look at and still use these gifts, to borrow from a religious language, talents that I have, and use those in a new way to give back.
To give back, and honestly, you really don't know. As I said before, you can look back and see that there was a particular path that led me to where I am right now. That's going to be true for the rest of life, right? And you don't really know what's going to be ahead, but when you look back, all of a sudden, the small choices, I turned left, I turned right, those kinds of things add up. And so a small experience that sparks some joy or some passion or some interest can move you towards saying, well, I want to be an accountant, but I love arts, right? So our painting accountant can say, you know what would be amazing? I want to work with the DuPage Arts Council. I want to work with the Art Institute or a museum, something like that, right? So that you can move the particulars of your career in a way that makes sense and that finds satisfying, that both uses your talents and puts you in spaces that you really do want to feel like a whole person in.
Right. And that actually goes back to the conversation that we started with in the series with Carl Kelly, talking about institutional organizational psychology and how important it is to feel fulfilled in where we are by having a sense that we have a purpose, that what we do has meaning, and then that gives us a long-term wellness in our life. And so I think that can be a great tool in this, is exploring those opportunities as people are looking out for what they do.
Absolutely. That sense of feeling meaning or mattering depending on how you want to sort of parse that, is it's hard to see it up front because there's a difference between having fun or doing something that is fun and doing something that is rewarding. To maybe borrow some slightly biblical language, something can start out like a very thin kind of spider web of a connection, but as it sort of goes on, that turns into a deeper and deeper and deeper connection where you're something that you find really rewarding, while on the outside is maybe not as fun as something else might be. It just grows, right? It accretes that kind of power where the more time you spend with it, the more rewarding it becomes to you throughout your life.
Yeah, and we saw so much of that during COVID, where you saw the big tech companies who had built these spaces so that people could be fun and hang out and everything like that. They were getting utilized yet less and less as people recognized that the work was still not as fulfilling. And so even though they had created very vibrant, fun workplaces, they still weren't feeling fulfilled in that. And so during COVID, a lot of people, reset that part of their life to prioritize being able to do the things that gave more meaning and purpose and mattering that they might not have found in that career job space.
That's I think I think I'm not alone in saying that one of the things that I really discovered is the sense of mattering, the sense of connection is not something that you can buy a ticket for. So I can buy a ticket and I can go buy a ticket and ride a roller coaster, and it's fun, but without sharing that with somebody, that can be a little empty. So having fun is it's the sort of candy or soda pop of the sort of emotional world. The good sort of lifelong healthy eating habits emotionally consist of connecting with people that you didn't know before and developing a friendship, developing a professional relationship or personal interests, not just enjoying something for its own sake, but being able to share it too. So going out into the community and sharing your knowledge is a beautiful way to make a connection.
One last thing, I would love to share one of the pieces that I've shared with people who have asked me about why I started Faith And was that I'm kind of greedy that I get to sit down with people I have great conversations with already, and but in the flip side is I get to share that now. And I know we've talked a lot about these ideas of meaning and purpose, and we're working with faculty right now, a faculty group that's exploring ideas of vocation and hoping to turn that into something larger for our community. But I want to focus in then on you. Like, why is this work important to you? Why is this where you feel you're feeling mattering right now?
So I think it's a tough question. It's a good question. The reason I think that this is so important is there are a lot of things in life that can take you by surprise. I've been surprised a lot in my life. I was born in Kansas, and I've sort of moved all over the country. So as one example, not really feeling like I have a hometown gives me a perspective that living in a community and feeling connected in a healthy way to a community that lifts you up, that supports you, that on a gloomy day there's somebody who can brighten your day, whether that's sending a nice message through a text or just a casual wave, those kinds of things. Community is so irreplaceable, and I think that the reason I find my work gratifying and fulfilling is trying to help people have that experience of thinking about what really matters to them, finding what brings them alive, and helping them then to share that on, both in their personal, like I say, I believe in helping people become whole people, so that you're not just one aspect or another of your identity, but that you're able to to feel like what you do matters and to feel like what you do is worth sharing, and to gain that sort of reward then of developing the connections that come out of that, so that you're not so isolated. And this having conversations like this is important for everyone, and it's something that I hope everybody can take out of these kinds of experiences as they go out into the community and experience the big world.
So for folks who want to share that experience with you, how can they do that? How can they get in touch with you?
For most students, I think the easiest way to kind of directly access these things are either through the community engaged learning classes, but more especially the student organizations. I'm trying to work with sort of all student organizations to sort of, for example, the IO Psychology Club is trying to find a way to connect with partners to take what they've learned in the classroom and not only employ it towards their degree, but also as part of their organization, right? Through their organizations, talk to your exec board. If you want to start a club, right, I'm more than happy to support that kind of stuff with Chris Wallace and help people kind of connect that way. My door is always open, and that door itself may be changing, so stay tuned. But currently you can find me in the library. I'm always happy to talk to students anytime.
Great, thank you. And faculty and community partners?
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Just through your email, is that the easiest way?
Just through my email. Yes, and I use the Calendly like you do, so that people can set their own time, whatever works for them. Yeah, I'm always here.
Very good. Well, thank you so much. And we're so glad that you all joined us, both here in Coton Chapel and online. Do take a second, if you have a moment online, to comment and leave your questions here. We'll keep an eye on those. And if there's any way that we can get you connected with Eric, we'll be glad to do that. And also like and subscribe. We can do that now too. Thank you so much for Faith And. We'll see you soon.